Welcome back, Guardians. Okay, so I just got done watching some of my subscriptions for YouTube channels I follow because they fall into one or more categories of game experiences. Everything from theory crafting all the way down to just actual play, goofing off kind of stuff. So, Extra Credits has a video out. You should go watch their channel. And it's about the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And if you're not familiar, in a summary, it's basically a tier list starting at the bottom with your most essential needs, like things that keep you living, safety, health, food, that kind of stuff. And then once that's all, well, not safety, safety's on the next tier up, but anyway, like food, hygiene, sleep, physiological stuff. Then the next tier up, once you satisfy those needs, you get safety. Then you satisfy that need, you get love and belonging, a sense of community. Then above that, you start to satisfy your esteem. Then above that, you start to satisfy self-actualization, which is basically arts and cultures, sciences and things like that, exploration, if you will. And this Extra Credits episode was about one of their content members, James, who created a hierarchy of player needs. And at the very bottom, the most essential thing we all need to get is understanding basics of play. And then after we mastered that, it's the intuitive user interface. Then above that, it's the satisfying experience, the immersion of the experience of playing the game. And then there's the experiencing the core fantasy. Like, what is the game's main purpose? Is it to make you feel more powerful? Does it make you feel more connected to a community? Is it about crafting? Is it about puzzle solving? That kind of thing. Make you feel smart, that kind of stuff. And then beyond that, the most upper level, thing that a player needs to fulfill in as far as to have a full game experience, an enjoyable game experience, is the positive in real life impact. Now, when it comes to Destiny, the intuitive interface is pretty damn straightforward. You've got a wandering cursor that you move around. You've got the journeys. You got the director. Everything's laid out for you. You're spoiled for choice with all this right here. It's pretty good. You see Crucible, okay, you understand that this is player versus player. You just read the screen. It's kind of like what the professor from the Tolarian Community College channel says. That's another game channel that I follow. When it comes to Magic the Gathering, reading the card explains the card. Well, reading the screen explains the activity. You have, you notice that this is a special event. Then you have, this mode over here. It tells you everything. Same goes over here for Vanguard. Cooperative missions. That means that we're not shooting each other as players. We're supposed to be working together as players. Although a lot of players do find ways to troll each other and subvert any progress that their teammates might have by throwing glacier grenades in front of them while they're firing down lane at a target that it's very obvious they picked that target as part of their bounty. I'm being specific for reasons here. And again, you have this competitive co-op. So it does open the door for actually more, player versus player, but that's basically 1v4 or 1v3, depending on who's invading at the same time. That's Gambit. Out here, you've got your advertisement for the next expansion. You've got the Helm, which is all your seasonal activities. You got the Tower, which is your semi-social space where you go to pick up bounties, engage in the economy of the game, and all that kind of stuff. So the understanding of the basics of play and the intuitive user interface is pretty damn good. Now, the satisfying visual experience, the feedback loop that goes into your dopamine brain, it's subjective. I think it is really at this point where Destiny kind of has fallen off a bit. The experience is too visceral, in my objective opinion here. There's so many flashes going on. There's so much noise going on. There's so much interface going on. It's like you're in that astronaut training segment where you've got sirens of various degrees going off in your face, flashing light. You're spinning around in a 720 dynamo kind of situation, and you're trying to put chords of a matching color into sockets of a matching color, and then there's lots of subtleties between the colors. It's like that's 3 different values of orange that go into 3 different values of orange. And then there's duplicated sockets where you have 2 reds and 1 red cable. You got to pick the right red socket. So it's all good fun. Um, if you're into that kind of freneticism, that's great. But Destiny does help mitigate that with some controller options. You know, you can turn the vibration off if that's too much for you to deal with. That tactile sensation. The video can be, motion blur can be. I have motion blur turned off. I have the chromatic aberration turned off. That's the shifting of light over surfaces. I have the film grain turned. I have as much turned off as possible. I have this on for some reason, but I don't think that's really necessary anymore. And then, of course, you can change your view to your field of view, unscripted and unrehearsed. You can do all kind of stuff, and even in the sound, I keep down to just the basics of sound effects, and if there's anybody in chat, so that we can coordinate if they're on microphone. Two wishes I have for Crucible: mandatory microphone. You don't have to say anything, but your mic must be on so that you can hear things. So if you do want to do call-outs, you can do call-outs. You can adjust this all right here. There's color blindness modifiers here, which is fucking amazing. HUD display, you can do, the full, dark HUD displays, or you can go low, or you can even go off. I tend to go more to the low side so I can see more of what's going on beyond all that stuff. Subtitles. The only thing I wish they could allow us to do was to this kind of like these hot points that show up on the screen because of the lighting effects. I mean, Destiny is a beautiful game. I would have to say that the visceral experience is great, but it can be a little overwhelming for me and for people who feel the same way. Above that, there's the experience in core fantasy. Well, Destiny is a first-person shooter, looter, power fantasy game. That is what the game was advertised at when it was first announced as Destiny 1, and it is how it is basically advertised as Destiny 2. Power fantasy. And that rings right into that, that fourth level of experiencing the core fantasy. What is the core fantasy of Destiny? You are a resurrectable super soldier, essentially. You have space magic. You have really powerful weapons. You can jump in really weird ways. You can bend the laws of physics around you and create all kinds of effects. And when you get one shot across the map by a dreg, which is like your lowest tier enemy, you don't feel that fantasy very much. There's a mechanic in the game. The characters have stats. And most everybody is now agreeing that based on the sandbox in the game, which is the environment in which you engage in the game, that resilience is your most primary stat. So much so that everyone is recommending that you put it on your ghost as a modifier to the ghost functions that improves your chances of getting high resilience stat items. Now the problem with that is that if you take high resilience, you're going to lose out on mobility and recovery, which is not too terrible. I used to go full mobility because I play a hunter, that's my class ability, and I used to run with bombardiers, which of course keys off of mobility to activate it, dodging. But I have just so many ways to get my class ability back, so many ways faster that it doesn't really make a difference. The other thing is that there's no way to influence the bottom three stats, because these are split. The top three stats are all grouped together. There's a total here. And then the bottom three stats are all grouped together, and there's a total here. How did I get... I don't understand that. That was weird. Anyway, so there's no way to sway the bottom three stats. You got to pick group 1 or group 2, and then one of the three in each. It's kind of like, okay, so it makes it harder to play. But the point is that the game is a looter also, which means that you're going to spend a majority of your time looking for loot. And you're going to look for good gun rolls. You're going to be questing for resources to craft good guns. You're going to be, questing for good armor stats. You're going to be questing for exotics with good armor stats. All that kind of stuff. Once upon a time, you had to quest pretty hard and far for your subclass abilities, but that's kind of really like a half an hour's worth of effort for new characters. So it really doesn't play into it too much. You really do spend a lot of your time fiddling and tinkering with your inventory, basically, is what it is. Ghost kind of is basic. You just got to level them up, pick your perks, and you're good to go. I would love for armor to be that way. Level it up, pick your perks, and good to go. And that includes also picking where you want these perks to be. Kind of like a point-buy system, like a lot of role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games do. Now, you do get to have a mod here, but I think if they took this away, just kick that shit out. Just kick that fucking shit all the way out and allow us to point purchase what we want on our armor, where we want our focuses, based upon the total stat values. Because you see there's a total stat value down here. You take away the masterwork, which is 12 points. You take away the stat increase, which is 10 points. That's a 65 overall stat line. And then if you could go ahead and find a way to raise that 65 up, and like you would put points into your character as modifiers if you were playing a tabletop game, do something like that in Destiny. I can't think of any other RPGs that do it like Destiny does, honestly. I mean, even in Raid Shadow Legends, which I play, which is technically advertised as an RPG, but it's really not. It's a turn-based strategy looter. Essentially that's what it is. You can increase your armor, your artifacts value overall, um, and stats with enchantments and which are mods like this game. Uh, and by just putting resources into it, you can't put resources into this other than growing the power level, the energy level, so you can open up these mods here. But this is the only spot you could put any kind of ability upgrade into. So the fantasy, the core fantasy experience is kind of, it's there, but it's like it's really hit or miss. It's really hit or miss. Forsaken seemed to have really hit really hard with everybody. Everybody loved it. Shadowkeep was kind of like whatever. Witch Queen was okay. We're getting a little bit back to Forsaken. Season of the Wish and Season of the Witch have been pretty all right. But anyway, and then the final one, the positive IRL impact. Now, this is where Destiny used to really blow up. There were so many cool things that would happen in the game back in the early game. And there have been some really cool things that happen now in the current game, which is independent of the uh, fantasy, the intuitive UI, and the understanding the basics of play. It's all the positive IRL impact feeds completely off of the visceral experience, off the satisfying immersion of the game. Watching your buddy get ricocheted off of a wall because he decided to fire a rocket launcher point blank into a Hydra, and laughing about that hysterically on microphone, and then days later, as you're just chatting through in another game, by the way, just like, hey man, want to bounce a rocket off a Hydra, and then it becomes a meme. It says, hey, let's rocket a Hydra. It's kind of like the Leroy Jenkins experience. So it creates that kind of out of game storytelling, which is very important. It was what Destiny was most noted for throughout the gaming industry, and a lot of games tried to emulate that by pushing socialization into their games. Whereas with Destiny, it just kind of happened organically, and then Bungie leaned into it with Destiny 2 with a bunch of different mechanics to promote that. And it's just, game developers and companies in general, people who produce products and services, have a tendency to see a thing take off and then be like, well, we'll do more of that. But then they do it too much, or they make it to become a mandatory experience. And maybe that's not something you feel like all the time. Some of the best moments that I can recall outside of the gameplay that I still talk about with family and friends is things that weren't like, I wasn't looking to make that happen. We weren't trying to be funny. We weren't trying to goof off. We were dead serious, and that's probably why it was so much funnier afterwards. We were dead serious going to make this raid happen. And then, just wacky after wacky, Misadventure decided to step in and play with us. The architects are having too much fun, and that's what it is. So, getting Bungie to listen once again to the players and take a look at what we're engaging, I think there's a good way that can happen. And yeah, this is kind of falling back into my whole wish list. Vanguard Ops should just be the vanilla strikes. Just the vanilla strikes, okay? Yeah, I don't like the Corrupted. I don't like Birthplace of the Vile. I don't like the Sword Logic, and I'm okay with Shadowkeep anymore. The Scarlet Keep is okay now compared to the others. I mean, even the Corrupted has become a little bit less tedious now that there's better builds out in the game. But I do think that there should be a fourth menu over here for legacy seasonal content, like the battleground operation heists and the rescue missions, which are currently going on right now. That if you want to play those older seasons activities, you can play them in a separate location, or put them into rotation with Grandmaster Nightfalls or Nightfalls, something like that. Just so that they're not in here, because I cannot tell you how many times I've loaded into a strike, and it's the Lunar Heist strike, which is not the worst one. The Europa Heist strike seems to be the least popular, and people will leave the lobby. Oh god, it's a fucking psyops. Oh god, it's a battleground heist. They'll leave it, and even the Birthplace of the Vile, I've seen people bail on that, and Sword Logic. I think it's called Sword Logic. I want to go check my shit here. Birthplace of the Vile. Yeah, the Light Blade. Sorry, not Sword Logic. That's an older strike. The Light Blade. So yeah, these are they're hiking simulators, my friend. They are hiking fucking simulators. They just you spend so much time not shooting at anything and just running across platforms. Why? Because back in Destiny 1, players would go off map as much as they could and explore as much as they want. Bungie saw that and said, "Hey, these guys are really engaging in this exploration." No, what we were doing is we were rebelling against the design of your dungeon levels. That's what we were doing. Uh, we were doing what players always do. It's a classic meme in the Dungeons and Dragons or RPG community that none of your encounter designs will ever survive in interaction with your player. It's kind of like I think it was Patton who used to say that all your best plans will fail once they meet the enemy, which is why planning is everything, but plans are nothing. Uh, and that's kind of basically what I want to just pop out there. Like I said, go check out the extra credits video. This is a really great group. They're on their own little channel platform, a station kind of platform. Um, Curiosity, I think it's what it's called. I've been threatening to subscribe to them because a lot of the creators that I watch, a lot of the producers that I watch have main channels on that streaming service, and I'm like, yeah, it's one more streaming service. I'd be the only one watching it, so it's really worth it, but I don't know. Maybe this year it might actually be worth it. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Until next time, play well, be well. Don't settle for bullshit. You're the one who's paying for it.